Assalamualaikum, everyone. Today is September 19th, 2021. Welcome to Wall Street to Bay Street Sunday Chai with Sharia Portfolio Canada. My name is Nadeem Mia.
And my name is Shamil. Get your chai ready and let's get into the swing of things. It's a pretty big week in Canada. It is election week. And for those in Canada, we do encourage you to go out and vote and do your due diligence on each party. Let's get right into it here. So we're going to be covering some financial related topics and how they can affect Canadians. So Nadeem, why don't you start us off? Why don't you tell us what each party is claiming to do in terms of their housing plans?
Sure. We're going to specifically talk about the three parties, and all three parties have housing as a top, a topic on their platform. Specifically affordable housing. We've obviously seen, housing prices in Canada take off, and the real focus really is how do you make that affordable. So starting with the Liberals, and what we're really doing is just touching on some of these topics. We understand that there are a number of other reasons why you may or may not vote for whichever party, but we're specifically talking about, some of the financial aspects of it, right? So starting with housing, what the Liberals are doing is they're starting off, the focal point is to introduce a tax-free first home savings account. So this would be something like combining the features of an RSP and a TFSA for Canadians who are under 40 that can save up to about 40,000 towards their first home, and they can withdraw this money tax-free, and they can put that towards their first home purchase with no requirement to repay it. Right. So this is obviously an important focal point of the Liberal housing plan. They also are introducing in anti-flipping tax, where basically, if you buy a property, it has to be held within 12 months. Otherwise, there will be a capital gains tax on it. So as of right now, for example, if you buy a house, you sell it, 2-3 months from now, and you flip it, there's no capital gains tax. So what they're trying to really do is maybe kind of crack down on the flipping. They're also calling for a doubling of the home buyers tax credit. And at the same time, they're pledging about $1 billion in loans and grants to develop a new rent-to-own program between a landlord and renter. I mean, that sounds kind of interesting. Sounds actually kind of something like a Sharia compliant program. But overall, they are looking to increase the number of homes as well to about 1.4 million homes over the next 5 years. Conservatives, actually, their plan is more centered around increasing the supply out there. They plan on building 1 million homes in the next 3 years. They also are, they're introduced I guess you could say a tax plan where they're encouraging the rental market by extending the ability to defer capital gains tax when you sell a rental property and you move that money into another rental housing. So, just to kind of, help the rental market on that. They're also introduced or suggesting that they lax the rules on stress tests for mortgages, especially when it comes to renewals. And they're also introducing a 7 to 10 year mortgage terms, which we currently do not have, and currently it's only at 5. Finally, the NDP, their platform is more focusing on social housing. They're looking at about 500,000 units of quality housing over the next 10 years. They're looking to waive some of the tax on the construction of new affordable rental units. So, and they're also, like the Liberals, they're also suggesting that they double the home buyers tax credit. And finally, they are looking to reintroduce a 30-year mortgage term, which would be pretty cool, I guess. Finally, the one thing that I will say is that all of the parties, when it comes to the housing plan, have one thing in common. They are trying to address the foreign buying. So the Conservatives and Liberals actually agree on this. They actually are looking to implement a freeze on foreign home buying or kind of ban blind buying as a part of their election housing platform. And it's there to try to improve the affordability in Canada, some of Canada's major cities, right? The NDP, they're looking to impose a 20% foreign tax buyer on the sale to any non-Canadians or permanent residents. Again, and all this is just to kind of, make housing more affordable to Canadians.
Perfect. And the next thing we have is, what is each party claiming to do with regards to the taxing situation?
Yeah, I mean, taxes is always everyone's favorite topic, I guess. And of course, it's relevant to what we do, which is managing money and so forth. So, starting with the Liberals, first off, all three parties again have something in common where they're talking about, paying the fair share, taxing the rich. Some parties more than others, but ultimately, all of the parties are kind of trying to at least give that impression that what, the wealthy need to pay more. So, starting with the Liberals are introducing a what's called a minimum tax rule, and that would ensure that all Canadians with incomes high enough to fall into like the top tax bracket, they would pay a tax rate of at least 15% per year. Now, they're also, so this is just a plan to further increase the tax on the top 1%. They're also introducing they also plan to increase funding to the CRA of about $1 billion. And I guess this is just to kind of, to really kind of, I guess, help the CRA, fight against some of those wealthy people that can pay for the expensive lawyers and the accountants, right? So just to kind of fight back on aggressive tax planning and tax avoidance, the Liberals are saying to invest about $1 billion into the CRA. And conservatives, switching to the conservative, they're also, funny enough, they're also is suggesting that they invest up to 750 million into the CRA. So same thing, try to beef up the CRA and hope to cover some loopholes. The conservatives, their focus more is on large corporations, interestingly enough, and specifically foreign multinationals and big tech companies. What they want to do is they want to make foreign tech companies pay their fair share of taxes by including a sales tax and a digital services tax, representing about 3% of the gross revenue in Canada, if they don't pay any corporate income tax. So basically, in a nutshell, trying to kind of go after multinationals and big tech companies, who have been known to kind of, not evade taxes, but be a little bit clever in their taxes. And finally, they don't really outline any major changes to their existing rates or programs that would say that the taxes are going higher. They are, however, introducing a GST holiday. I think it looks like it's going to be December, and it's for Christmas. Maybe one day Eid will be in December, and we'll take advantage of that. But that is one thing that they are introducing. And finally, with the NDP, the NDP is a little bit more, I would say, drastic in the sense that they're introducing an annual wealth tax of 1% of every dollar a family possesses above 10 million in their net wealth. So in other words, if you have a family that has $100 million, they would be paying like a $900,000 wealth tax on that. They are planning to increase the marginal tax, the top marginal tax rate from 30 to 35% from 33%. And finally, the NDP does plan to increase the capital gains inclusion rate to 75%. So right now, 50% of your capital gains is taxed. And what they're basically saying is they want to up it to 75. Now, of course, if you're looking at RSP accounts or TFSA accounts, that doesn't impact you. But if you're non-registered money, then of course that would apply.
Perfect. And the last thing we have is, based on the outcome of the election, if you're speaking historically, what kind of impact has that had on the stock market and particularly TSX?
Yeah, so I mean, whether we have the government's responsibility is more fiscal, right? Managing the budget and spending and so forth, and a lot of that, impacts stuff like the currency and just the national debt. Now, of course, with the lockdown and the pandemic, every country in the world has increased their debt, but amongst the G7s, Canada's net debt to GDP is actually the lowest of the G7 countries. So yes, Canada has obviously, spent a lot more, increased their debt, but relative to the rest of the world, they're actually not that bad. And it also affects the credit quality, right? If that's I would say how a government can impact, when it comes to stuff such as, the markets, right? Historically, whether you've had a majority liberal or a majority conservative, minority liberal, minority conservative, I think some of this stuff is more short term, but ultimately, there are more structural things in play that really will drive markets. Like, for example, if a party gets in and they decide they want to increase the tax on the banks, yeah, sure, that might hurt the banks, but ultimately, there are other structural things that are going on that will drive markets higher. And finally, I mean, if you take a look at the TSX specifically, it is dominated basically by financials, which as a Sharia portfolio, we don't really, we don't participate in because these are not Sharia compliant. And energy. Now, energy, sure, you can make the argument that if left leaning like a liberal or the NDPs get in, they're not exactly, energy friendly, whereas the conservatives are. So let's just say hypothetically, if the conservatives got in, yeah, sure, short term, that might look good for the energy companies out there, but ultimately energy stocks are mainly driven on the price of the commodity, not necessarily, what the government's, like the government really doesn't have a push in the needle when it comes to, global energy prices. So, to sum it up, I would say that, it highly looks like, we're going to probably have some type of a minority government. That's what the pollsters are saying. And, I kind of look at that like movie night at my house where I got 4 kids and everybody wants something, but guess what? Not everybody's going to be happy with what the selection of the movie is going to be. So, when you have a minority government, there's going to be a lot of kind of like, okay, well, I can't get what I want, but I have to negotiate. So you have things kind of coming in the middle. And I think the market typically likes that, where you don't have one party that's necessarily, dictating the agenda.
Perfect. Yeah, it's gonna be an exciting week, and it's gonna be fun to see, who comes out on top here. So, once again, thank you guys for joining us, and bringing your child along with you. And hopefully we'll see you next week. If you do have any other questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. And once again, from myself and Nadeem, thank you and see you next week.
And go out and vote. Assalamu alaikum.
Nadeem Mian, Portfolio Manager, registered as an advising representative, and Shamil Devji, Financial Advisor, registered as a dealing representative with Sharia Portfolio Canada Inc., a portfolio manager registered in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. Their opinions and statements expressed in this show are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect those of Sharia Portfolio. They are effective as of the date of this broadcast only and are subject to change. This discussion is for general information purposes only and is not investment advice.